Hello students, welcome to this second lecture on centrifugal pumps, unit number 5. In this we will discuss construction and working of a centrifugal pump. In our first lecture we have discussed the introduction of a centrifugal pump, classification of general rotodynamic pumps, and we have also discussed the classification of a centrifugal pump. Now we start with construction and working of a centrifugal pump. So the main parts of a centrifugal pump are the impeller, then casing, then suction pipe with a footwall and a strainer, and a delivery pipe with a delivery valve. So this is a figure that shows all of this. This is the impeller, then the casing, then suction pipe with a footwall and strainer, and a delivery pipe with the delivery valve, right? And you can see in the diagram the centrifugal pump is being used to pump the liquid from a sump, that is a low level reservoir sump, and it is delivered to a overhead tank. Now what is impeller? Impeller is a wheel or a rotor having a series of backward curved blades or vanes which vary from 6 to 12 in number. Okay, it is a rotor with a curved blades around 6 to 12 in number. Impeller is a rotating part of a centrifugal pump, and it is mounted on a shaft which is coupled to the shaft of an electric motor. Okay, the rotary part of a centrifugal pump is called as impeller instead of rotor. The impellers are of three types, namely closed impeller, semi-open impeller, and an open impeller. This slide shows you closed impeller. It is also called as shrouded impeller. Now it is the one whose vanes are covered on both sides with the metal plates as shown in figure. So here you can see there are curved vanes, curved blades, and these vanes are covered on both sides, from the back side as well as from the front side, by means of a metallic plates. Okay, the back plate is called as back plate, and the front plate or base plate, and the front plate, this one, is called as a crown plate. So these plates or shrouds, metal plates also known as shrouds, are known as crown plate and a base plate. Okay, the closed impeller is more efficient and it provides better guidance to the liquid. This type of impeller is most suited when the liquid to be pumped is pure and it is free from debris and have low viscosity. Okay, examples of such liquids are ordinary water, hot oils, and the acids, right? So these liquids should be pure and they should be free from the solid debris. Also the liquids should have low viscosity. Okay, the material of the impeller is selected based on the type of liquid used. Next is semi-open impeller. In this, if the vanes have only the base plate and no crown plate, such a type of impeller is known as semi-open type of a impeller. as you see in the figure. There are curved blades, vanes with only plate on one side, that is back plate or base plate is present, and the crown plate is not present. Such an impeller is called semi-open impeller. It can be used even if the liquid contains some debris such as a sewage water, paper pulp and sugar molasses. Okay, this kind of liquids containing some semi-solid debris can be pumped by means of a semi-open impeller. Now, in order to avoid any clogging of this impeller, its number of vanes is reduced and their height is increased so as to prevent the clogging of the impeller because of debris. The number of vanes are less, but the height of the vanes is more. The third type of impeller is open impeller. An open impeller is the one whose vanes have neither the crown plate nor the base plate. Okay, these vanes are open on both sides, right? As you see in the figure, there is neither a provision of a crown plate nor a provision of a base plate. So these are open type of vanes and the open impeller. These are used for pumping the liquids containing suspended solid matter. Examples are paper pulp, sewage water and the water containing sand, grit, pebbles and the clay. Okay, such kind of liquids can be pumped by means of an open impeller, right? Generally, this impeller is made of forged steel as a material, as it has to perform a very rough duty. Now, second part component of a centrifugal pump is a casing, right? Casing is an airtight chamber which surrounds the impeller. It is similar to the casing of a reaction turbine. An airtight chamber which surrounds the impeller of a centrifugal pump, and it is almost similar to the casing used in a reaction water turbine like a Francis turbine or Kaplan turbine. It is designed, the casing is designed in such a way that the kinetic energy of the water discharged at the outlet of the impeller is converted into pressure energy before the water leaves the casing and enters the delivery pipe. So what happens is, the kinetic energy of the water leaving the impeller is converted to pressure energy as it flows through the casing before exiting the casing. Now there are three types of casing: volute casing, vortex casing and a casing with guide blades. So let us see one by one. Volute casing. The volute casing is of spiral shape, in which the area of a flow increases gradually from the impeller outlet to the delivery pipe. It is of volute casing is of a spiral shape. So here you can see this is a spiral shape of the casing, but the cross section of a casing, that area increases from the impeller outlet up to the entry of a delivery pipe. So there is a continuous increase in cross sectional area of the casing. Okay, gradual increase in the cross sectional area of the casing, and the overall shape is like a spiral. The increase in area of a flow decreases the velocity of the flow with corresponding increase in the pressure of the water flowing through the casing, right? Cross-sectional area increase results in drop in the velocity and increase in the pressure of the water. Single stage pumps are mostly having volute type of casing. The volute casing has higher eddy losses, which results in the lower overall efficiency of the casing or of the pump. There will be a lot of eddy formation as the liquid flows in the casing. So that results in a loss of energy. So the efficiency reduces. The pumps which use such a type of a casing are called volute pumps. The second type of casing is a vortex casing. In this type, a circular chamber is provided between the impeller and the casing. As you see in the figure B, there is a provision of a circular chamber. Okay, here a dashed line represents the circular chamber around the periphery of a impeller and before the casing, right? This chamber is called vortex chamber. The circular chamber is also known as vortex chamber or a whirlpool chamber. The vortex chamber reduces the eddy formation to an considerable extent, right? Thus, the efficiency of these pumps will be more than that of a earlier type volute casing pumps, as it reduces the formation of a eddies. The pumps which use this type is called volute pump with a vortex chamber. Then we have third type of casing with guide blades. The impeller here is surrounded by a series of fixed guide blades which are mounted on a diffuser ring. Okay, the impeller is surrounded by a series of a fixed guide blades, right? And these guide blades are mounted on the diffuser ring. Okay, and then there is externally casing. The guide vanes passages are of a increasing area, so that reduces the velocity and increases the pressure of the flow, and the water from the impeller enters in the guide blades without any shock. That is how the guide blades are designed. The water from the guide vanes then passes through the casing, which is mostly concentric in shape with the impeller. The pumps having guide vanes are called as diffuser pumps, or these are also known as turbine pumps, as it resembles a reversed type of a water turbine, a reversed reaction water turbine. Okay, construction wise it is similar to that. These pumps may be of vertical or horizontal shaft type. The vertical shaft type occupies less space and is suitable in deep well installations, right? These pumps have maximum efficiency, but these are less satisfactory when a wide range of operating condition is required, right? So they are efficient at one particular operating condition. Then we have third component, that is suction pipe with a footwall and a strainer. Now suction pipe is a pipe whose upper end is connected to the inlet of this pump, that is the center of the impeller, which is also known as eye of impeller, and the lower end of a suction pipe dips into the liquid in a sump. The lower end of the suction pipe is fitted with a footwall and a strainer. The footwall is a non-return one-way valve which opens in the upward direction, and it prevents the flow in a downward direction. Okay, one-way valve in upward direction. The liquid first enters the strainer, which removes the debris, if at all, from the liquid, and then the liquid flows into the footwall, and then it will flow through the suction pipe up to the entrance of the impeller. The delivery pipe and the delivery valve is the last component. It is the pipe whose lower end is connected to the outlet of the pump, and its upper end delivers liquid to the required height to the overhead tank. Now, just near the outlet of the pump on the delivery pipe, a regulating valve is fitted, which controls the flow of liquid from the pump into the delivery pipe. The stepwise working of a centrifugal pump is explained below. The first step in the working operation of a centrifugal pump is priming. Now, during the priming operation, the delivery valve is kept closed. The priming is the operation in which the suction pipe, the casing of the pump, and some portion of the delivery pipe up to the delivery valve are completely filled with the liquid which is to be pumped, so that no air pockets are left. Okay. So, this portion of a suction pipe, casing, and some portion of a delivery pipe is filled up with the liquid so as to remove any air pockets before starting the pump. The pressure generated in a centrifugal pump is proportional to the density of the fluid it handles. Okay. So, a very small pressure will be developed if the impeller rotates in the presence of air. This point actually refers to the negative pressure that develops at the center of the impeller. And this negative pressure that develops, the vacuum pressure that develops at the center of a impeller, is proportional to the density of the fluid that it handles. Thus, a very small pressure will be developed if the impeller rotates in the presence of the air. Thus, no liquid will be lifted by the pump if air is present. The electric motor is started to rotate the impeller, and the delivery valve is still kept closed so as to reduce the starting torque. The rotation of the impeller is in the casing is full of liquid that produces a forced vortex which provides a centrifugal head to the liquid and results in increase in pressure throughout the liquid. So, the rise in pressure head at any point of the rotating liquid is proportional to the square of the angular velocity and the distance of the point from the axis of rotation. Okay. Thus, if the speed of the impeller of the pump is high enough, then the pressure of the liquid increases considerably. Now, when the delivery valve is opened, the liquid flows in an outward radial direction and leaves the vanes of the impeller at the outer radius with a very high velocity and high pressure. The rotation of the impeller and centrifugal action causes a partial vacuum at its eye of the impeller, which causes the suction of the liquid from the sump through the suction pipe. The sucked liquid replaces the liquid which is being discharged from the circumference of the impeller. Further, some velocity head is also converted into pressure head in the casing that we have discussed, and also in the diffuser blades if the diffuser blades are used. Okay, thank you.